Welcome to Imperfectly Human, the podcast where we get real about mental health, messy growth, and being human one day at a time. I'm your host, Rachel, and together we're navigating life's chaos with honesty, compassion, and a little humor. Let's get into it. Hello, my friends, and welcome to Imperfectly Human. I'm your host, Rachel, and today we have a fabulous comedian and entrepreneur, Jill Pavlov, and I'm so excited because this is just like a lot of things for me to hear about, learn about, but also for my listeners to just see how you've taken your story and what you've done and have transformed it into something completely amazing. So welcome, Jill. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be here. As we were talking about before, it's like if we can save one person from this, that is the mission. So
Absolutely.
We got to share our stories, got to take away the stigma and replace it with love and compassion, and that's how we heal.
Oh my God, I love that. 100%. Because I think that going off that, we spoke a little bit offline about like how your story is like so far in the past, but yet it's still so right underneath you because, it's a lot of defining of who you are and where you are, but it doesn't define you. That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when you're first in recovery, it feels like that's your whole personality. Right. And I remember writing an article sharing my story like maybe 6 months after, and it felt like this is my mission and I'm going to live in this world of helping others with eating disorders. And even during the pandemic, because that was a couple years after I was in recovery, I remember I did like a Instagram live or something, just really helping people through all of that. And as I got further and further away from it and further into my recovery, it's like the mission underneath stayed the same, but it's not as niche.
Right.
It's not just... I'm not just trying to help women with eating disorders. Now my mission has spread to wanting to help women just realize their biggest, boldest, most amazing selves, because that was something that was really hidden by my eating disorder.
Right. And so so you said right after COVID.
So yeah, right after COVID was when I was doing this like live because I was
okay.
recovered. But I went into treatment for the final time in September of 2018.
Okay.
I went to the Meadows you're familiar with it?
I love the Meadows.
Saved my life. I had been to other places before, places that I believe made me worse.
Yeah.
And the Meadows was such a blessing. I was there for 65 days. Excuse me.
Love that.
And yeah, so I got back in November of 2018 and went right back to all of my habits. And it was my therapist, who's still my current therapist to this day, who caught me and threw me right back in.
Yeah.
And it was my parents who said, you don't have any other chances. Like, this is your final chance. And I kind of knew it was do or die at that time. And I ended up living in a sober living house, which, we haven't really gotten into those fun addictions yet. But that was the last time that I had ever, it was December 30th was my sober date. And that was when I really got everything together.
From your eating disorder?
From eating disorder and addictions. Yeah. I mean, eating disorders so different, right? Like I can say, I've been sober 7.5 years. I haven't touched alcohol. I haven't touched drugs.
Right.
With the eating disorder,
it doesn't ever just leave, right?
It doesn't ever leave, Like, I skipped a meal today. Is that anorexic behavior, or did I just not feel like thinking about what to make for breakfast?
Right.
And I've definitely had spells where the bulimia has come back for a little bit.
Okay.
It's been over 2 years for me since I've done that behavior. But even in my 7+ years of recovery, it sometimes sneaks back.
Yeah,
and
100%. And I can, I shared with you a little bit like on my podcast. Well, not mine, but Janine's. I shared my story, and the thing about the eating disorders is that you can recover. I mean, it's been probably, I don't know, 30 years since I've been in recovery, like really from that behavior. Maybe not. Yeah, I'm going to be 55. So I think around 25. But as an athlete myself, and me having exercise bulimia, there was a lot of rationalizing, but I am working out, I'm training for this. But the mindset, and that's the part that even to this day, like when I was training for my marathon and my Ironman, when I found myself having an urge to run an extra mile, right? I mean, we're talking now decades later. I'm like, that is not in your training. That is your ED. Mm-hmm. And it is so easy to sneak up, right? And then because you're not doing the active behaviors, but the thoughts still can be there.
Yeah, and that's why for me, my recovery, and it's so funny, like, I think you've probably read the book also, Life with ED,
Yep.
Life with Ed, yes, because it teaches you to separate, there's that eating disorder voice,
Yep.
just like you said, you knew it was the eating disorder voice, and to separate those two really helped me in my recovery because it's like, that's not me, that's the true
Right.
me. I now know who I am, and the person who I was in all of that is so different. It's insane how your values change. You know, you maybe lie, and that becomes
not
like
maybe. You do lie. I
You
mean,
lie.
let's be
That
honest.
becomes your baseline, and
Because you're covering up things.
yeah. You can justify so much. I mean, stealing roommates' food. I did that plenty of times. Like, that is not adult behavior.
Right. No, totally.
And it's insane how this disease just grabs a hold of your mind, just the way that any addiction would,
Right.
and really causes you to do things that are so out of character.
Right. So being in recovery from both, really, I mean, because even though, I mean, they're both serious diseases, right? They're so different in how they do show up and how one, substance abuse disorder, sober lifestyle seems to be a lot more accepted and a lot more like understood.
Yeah.
Right? At least in the public eye.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you have an eating disorder, how you show up, right? Because I could tell you, I am completely recovered from my eating disorder, my exercise bulimia. Like there's no question that I can see the difference. And I don't always love my body. I don't. And there are days that I envy women who wear things that I probably could wear, right? But I wouldn't be comfortable in.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so being able to like separate those two and know that like you could still be uncomfortable and not wear certain things. And that doesn't mean you're now back into your eating disorder.
Yeah, absolutely. Those thoughts are always going to be there. I remember one of my first therapists in all of this, she described it as a barking chihuahua. And that barking chihuahua
totally.
doesn't really go away. It just gets
Correct.
quieter and quieter because there could be some times that I wander into the food store and all of a sudden I'm in the snack aisle and, no normal human would eat as many cookies as I want to eat in that moment. And
Right.
so the subsequent action would be to purge it. And there's always the thought in my mind of like, well, I could just do this.
Right.
I could just do this once. Same thing with drinking. I could just do this.
Right.
But you have to play the tape through. You have to know yourself honestly and know yourself well enough to know that it's not just going to be one time and that it is such a slippery slope.
Right. So take us through to that time, what like your life was like growing up and that led you to that place of, shit, this is my rock bottom, December 30th. I need to do something.
Yeah. I had a wonderful childhood. I was always like trying to go back and like figure out where things went wrong. Like,
Right.
why do I have this? And I remember in my early trying to get recovered, I would say, this is all my fault. I'm just a vain person. The only reason I have this disease is because I'm vain and I want to be skinny. I can remember actually not just saying that, but believing it,
Right.
that could be the only cause because I had such a wonderful childhood.
But don't you think that that's because and I also had a fabulous childhood. I had no trauma like that. Like we're talking about like maybe my mom she was in a car accident. That was traumatic, but that's not the trauma that I think people think about. Like something had to have happened, had to go wrong. You had to have the most fucked up family
Yeah.
to have this. But what people don't understand, you can come from the most loving, nurturing, caring, foundational family and still struggle with something.
Yeah, exactly. And, there's a difference between, we called it big T and little t, big
Yep.
trauma and little trauma. And I was always like thinking I was in a Lifetime movie, like, oh, what must have happened that I blacked out in my brain? There must be something that sinister, and I'm going to go on a 2-hour journey with commercials. And it wasn't that. Looking back now, I can see all the little T's, you know, things like when I was in high school, a friend's dad said that I had an oddly shaped body. When someone tells you that at 15 years old, I still hear it when I look in the mirror.
Yeah.
I still hear it.
I totally
so
understand that.
it's all those little things, but I felt unworthy for as long as I can remember. I can remember going to summer camp and looking at my thighs and knowing that they were chunky. I wasn't a very active kid. I was a musical theater kid. I wanted to sit down and watch my musicals and sing. I think, like 7 years old when I decided I didn't want to go to regular summer camp anymore. It had too many sports. I asked my mom to go to theater camp.
Okay.
So I was this musical theater kid from the start who all I wanted to do was be Janet Jackson.
Right.
I wanted to be a pop star. And you can imagine growing up in the 90s with the narrative, or anytime before the early 2000s, really, or really just any time as a woman,
Right.
let's be honest.
I mean, I think in little ways it might have been a little easier for us growing up I was born in the 70s.
Yeah.
I didn't have my first cell phone until I was in college. And
That's
that was
true.
not even this. That was like the kind that screwed into my car.
Uh-huh.
You know?
We had like Us Weekly and 17 saying, this is what your favorite pop stars
Right.
eat to stay this exact
And all the
weight. And
different
they would
diets
report their
and-
exact weight. I mean,
Right.
so my brain associated being thin with being successful, with how I wanted to be successful. And I think that was something that stuck in my mind. And I was very awkward looking growing up, so I thought. And I just really never had any self-worth. I had these huge dreams, but I didn't think I was worthy of them because I didn't look right for them. And I took voice lessons, I took acting lessons, and I always had this talent, but I think that when I went on stage, I held back because I was shy or embarrassed with how I looked. I didn't want people to look at me. Even during class and in school, I learned how to sneeze without making any sound because I didn't want to make a noise and have someone like look at me with any form of disgust or weirdness.
So it sounds like you didn't think you deserved space in this world.
No.
Wow.
It's so interesting you say the word space too, because in improv, and you know, I know I'm jumping ahead, but one of the principles of improv is to take up space. And that's literally my mission, is to help women take up the space that we so rightfully own, because for so long, I kept waiting for someone to pick me or choose me for me to feel worthy. And I didn't realize that I was the one that had to give myself permission to do that. I was watching an old video of myself today with a friend who's like, she's really out in the spotlight. And this video was 15 years old maybe. And I was watching it and we were doing karaoke and she's out there like this. And I'm just kind of back on the microphone, just like making sure I hit the notes right. And watching it, I was like, that's not me. Like, that's not even my personality anymore.
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't worthy of that spotlight because I wasn't as beautiful or comfortable with myself, or, you know, I didn't like my personality as much as I do now. And so I really held myself back in so many ways.
So when did your eating disorder start?
My eating disorder started my senior year of high school.
Wow.
So over the summer before senior year of high school, I got a nose job. One of the reasons that I felt so horribly awkward as a child, and a friend of mine called me Toucan, was because I had a hump on my nose. And I was very against it for a long time. And finally, I just decided that, like, yes, this is what I wanted to do. And I saw the attention that I got when I came back to school, first day of senior year. All these other girls ended up getting nose jobs.
Oh, wow.
I started a trend in my high school in 1999 before the Kardashians did it. I'm so sorry. I was the one that made this trend. No, but honestly, like, seeing the reaction of like, oh, people are noticing me, I think it made me realize, like, I want more of this. I need more of this. And I can remember learning about eating disorders in middle school. I think, like, our dentist's daughter had one, and they wrote about her in the paper because I don't know why. I just have this memory and being like, well, that's cool. They kind of glamorized eating disorders in certain movies when I was younger. So I think I can remember one day I don't remember what I ate, but I remember I was at home and I took my toothbrush into the bathroom with me. And I remember sticking it down my throat. I apologize if this is graphic, trigger warning. But I remember sticking it down my throat and throwing up. And the summer before college, you know, I wasn't doing it every day, not to the point where I was in later years, but I learned this behavior and I wanted to go to college, like not this loser girl. I wanted to go to college, this new person. So I, in college, freshman year, I wasn't very good at hiding it because there were shared bathrooms. I was not as sneaky as I thought I was. And they reported me to the RA. They made me go to like the lame therapist that was there on campus. It didn't really do anything. And then I went on a cruise with my family and my sister heard me. And she had to make the decision to tell my parents, which, you know, was really tough on her. But once my parents got wind of it, it was like, we're throwing her in all the kinds of therapy that we can. And, you know, I tried a few different things. I ended up in Florida because when I was 22, I came down here for a inpatient down here. And I ended up falling in love with Florida, falling in love with the Florida scene a little too much, which kind of distracted me because I came down here for 2 months inpatient. I was doing really well. And then I discovered the Florida scene, and it was like I was 22 years old. There was no way I was mature enough for recovery. And I think we were saying before we started talking, you know, you were very good in high school and you didn't party or anything. I was the same. Like we went to the movies on the weekend.
Well, I won't say that I didn't party. I definitely did my share of drinking. Because that was like, but I was very, I want to say I was more responsible that like, but in terms of like touching drugs, I was more afraid of touching that just because I knew that like I have a very addictive personality. And at the time, my disordered eating, when I really look back, started when I was about 7. I came back from camp and one of my friends was on the phone with my mom. I was at her house and she said, "Oh, wow, Rachel got fat." And I'll never forget, I was wearing the dolphin shorts. And I mean, I was not anything close to fat.
Yeah.
Right? And I never realized until I got into my own recovery that little T was also my foundation of what led me to not believe that my body was good enough.
Yeah.
Right? And I come from a very athletic family. My father was a triathlon. My mom was, played tennis a lot. I was always athletic. So I exercised for the reason to lose weight, not because I really loved it. Now I exercise because I love it and I like what it does to my body. But I mean, I just remember that time and it never left me. And I didn't realize literally how bad it was. But in that moment, so growing up, I was very consumed with exercising, getting to bed early, my training. I had done a bunch of half marathons. I've done 5Ks. My first full marathon I was 24, and my dad was a big athlete. So, I was very consumed with getting to bed on time. Partying, I did a lot in high school. I went to University of Florida. Right? But it was always the drinking, which again, I'm very fortunate that that's something that I was so aware of because it was calories for me. And I was very mindful of okay, you don't need this.
Yeah.
But not everybody's like that. And somebody's predisposition too, right? We talked about the addictive personality. I know I have a very addictive personality, right? And I think being a therapist and a performance coach, I'm fully aware of that. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's plenty of things in my life that I don't even try.
Yeah.
That I know usually will not have a very fun long-term, short-term outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
And so go back to you and your eating disorder. When did your challenge with drugs and alcohol come in? At 22?
I think the alcohol was a slow creep, you know? I took my first sip of alcohol right after I graduated my senior year of high school to try it before college.
Right.
And I wasn't really huge on alcohol in college. I didn't really like the taste. I was more pot smoker, theater, let's get creative and do comedy. And so, it wasn't really till I got down here. I'm 22 years old. I'm like fresh in recovery and I don't have a job down here, and I get a job serving at a bar and restaurant where there's a giant bowl of French fries that are available at all times. Drinks are everywhere. And it was just a recipe for disaster. Right. I was so little. So I basically lived in secrecy for another 10 years with my eating disorder. Because I was too ashamed to tell my parents that I had failed. You know, a lot of looking back on my little T is my perfectionism and the standards that I held for myself, as well as the standards that my parents held for me in certain ways. And I don't blame them in any way, because I also was very motivated. Like, I came home from kindergarten crying because they didn't give us homework. I wanted to have homework with like DJ and Stephanie Tanner on Full House. And when they didn't give me homework in kindergarten, I was pissed. Right. So that's kind of my personality.
Overachiever.
Overachievers. I mean, people who are smart and talented in the gifted program in elementary school, we are prime candidates for this type of stuff because we cannot handle failure. We need to be in control. We need to be winning. So to answer your question about when the alcohol became involved, I think just living here in this environment where, you know, it could be spring break down here every day if you wanted to in Florida. Those of us who live here know. Yeah. And I think I just realized, oh, that's the lifestyle. That's the lifestyle. Right. Looking back, it's like, I think I was the only one doing shots. Everyone else was like sipping their beer, and I'm like downing shots and doing them before we're going out. So that was really a slow creep. And it wasn't until I had an ex-boyfriend introduce me to cocaine that things got really bad. So 2017 and 2018 were two of the worst years of my life, like just the perfect storm. Because, you know, I'm not someone who I thought would ever be addicted to something like that. Like, I was such a good kid. And I loved it because for however many years of my life at that point, over 10 years, I had not stopped being hungry once. Right. I was always hungry because I was always purging my food. And it was this vicious cycle. And once I took that first hit of cocaine, it was like, wait, I'm not hungry at all anymore. And I can feel like this all the time. Right. And so that became a slow creep too of like, I need to be under the influence of this all the time. Right. So yeah, for 2 years straight, I was under the influence every day. Wow. And my rock bottom was September 16th or 17th. I don't know the exact date, but it was my grandmom's funeral. I flew home from my grandmom's funeral in Philadelphia. And I had promised my therapist at the time that I wasn't going to drink that day because I had drank for 2 years straight and used for 2 years straight. And what happened was I went into withdrawal really badly. Even before I got on stage to give her eulogy, I was shaking. And when I got up there to give her eulogy, I froze. I couldn't move. My body was like in shock. My mom had to come and get me and help escort me off the stage.
Now, did your parents at this time know that you...
They didn't know. They knew I had an eating disorder.
Right, but they didn't know you were using it again.
And they see me drink. They didn't like my drinking behavior, but they never in a million years would have guessed that was like the third component of it. And I remember we drove to the graveyard and my mom wouldn't let me get out of the car because she thought I was going to faint. And so I'm sitting there watching my family pray over a grave that I was too weak to like get up. And it was just this eerie moment of like, that could be me. But of course that wasn't enough. My mom acted so quick, even though she had just lost her mom. Within 2 days, she had me booked at the Meadows. She had an interventionist come and fly in. My aunts and my closest friends all wrote me the most beautiful things that I had ever written that I did not want to hear at the time. And I went to the airport with the interventionist so that she made sure I didn't run, and went to the Meadows for 65 days, and it changed me. And you know, as I said in the beginning, I still had to struggle when I came back, but the foundation that place gave me, and like we said, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, learning that for the first time, things finally made sense.
Yeah. Were you angry at your parents for doing that?
I was so pissed off. I was sending them text messages from the airport. I hate you. And when I got there and I found out that I couldn't have my phone, I wish I had a video of that monster that they let loose at 3 a.m.
Right. But I think it's important for the listeners because I know that there are some parents that do hear this show and I've worked with plenty of parents who don't want to be that parent because they don't want to lose their relationship with their child. And what I say to them is if you lose it to drugs this way by getting them healthy, you're guaranteed to lose it by not doing anything.
Yeah.
Because they'll either be dead, on the streets, or out of your life.
Yeah.
Because unless you plan on living with them 24/7, being the helicopter parent and thinking that you can control their life, which is then you losing your life, right? You've got to just take that space for yourself to let them be angry. It's okay.
I was just gonna say, it's not always easy to identify. It's easy to
Correct.
brush off and be like, oh, this isn't that bad. This isn't that bad. But if something's telling you, like if something's giving you you know when to trust your gut. And this is not something that you want to gamble on. So you also have to remember that the person that is inside your child right now isn't 100% them. It's barely 10% them.
Right.
Because when addiction takes over, it's ugly. And as angry as I was at my parents, they're my best friends today. Like they absolutely saved my life because I would not be here if I hadn't gotten help.
Right.
So
What do you do for your program now? Or do you still did you go to the rooms? Do you go to meetings?
yeah, so when I was in sober living, we had to go to meetings, and I think that they were very foundational for me. But it really wasn't my vibe. First off, I'm a really bad listener, so sometimes if I wasn't sharing and it was just a bunch of other people sharing, it didn't really help me in that sense. Like a lot of people, I'm not trying to knock it. I almost feel bad for saying that.
No, and understand that AA and NA and all these meetings are not always for everybody.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that you can't try it, right? I tell people, especially if you're new into recovery, just try to go 90 and 90 just to have a foundation.
Yeah.
Even if you just meet one person, right? So that you can have a support.
Yeah, exactly. And the foundation was so important in those very early days. And I also had my therapist who saved my life once and I'm still with to this day. I see her once every month and a half just to kind of check in, see how things are going. I kind of just want to be friends with her at this point. So Abby, if you're listening, shout out. Let's take our relationship to the next level. But seriously, she is my rock. And so having her support was really, really crucial for me, more than the AA. But it also is important to have friends who are sober because I have a lot of friends that drink and I absolutely love them and I'm able to go out with them. It's not a trigger for me or anything. But that being said, it's definitely different when you hang out with friends who are sober and don't drink and you don't feel like you're the one bringing the party down.
Right. No, for sure. And so then now what got you into, because I have to shift, because I'm now needing to understand this because it's so funny that you said something about perfectionism. So I'm going to be 55 this year, okay? I'm definitely a type A. I'm a New Yorker. I was born in New York. I'm a straight shooter. I have a sharp tongue. I've worked really hard on that. I continue to. Not a lot bothers me. And growing up, a lot of my friends used to say, you're a perfectionist. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. Because I wasn't that kid that got upset if I didn't get it. I mean, I failed 3 fucking classes in my freshman year in high school and lied to my parents about it, right? I wasn't devastated about that. I ended up going to summer school and having to repeat them as a junior, right? But I actually was a perfectionist because I found, and even to this day, and that's why I still work on these things myself and why it brings me to the improv, because that scares the living shit out of me, right, is what keeps me stuck to being able to be the best version of myself, whether it be in performance coach or, getting out on the social media, which everybody lives on today, right, is my fear of. And it's only been literally the last 6 months that I've really dissected this and been like, holy shit, I do think I'm actually a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I work with high performers. I teach them how to not overthink. And I never even realized that I was actually overthinking, whether it be a social media post, even the podcast. Sometimes when I'd go on before I started doing this whole thing, I was talking into my phone and just, and then when I started doing the recording, I found myself shying away from it because Was I doing it right? Was I doing it good enough? Is it? And then I realized, like, holy cow, Rachel, you're a perfectionist, right? And so, being a perfectionist yourself, type A, how did you get into improv? I know that you had theater throughout your life growing up, but that's such a, like, kind of not a perfectionistic thing at all.
Right? It completely challenges my perfectionism. And I took my first acting lesson when I was in 5th grade.
Okay.
And I remember we started to play improv games then. It wasn't going to improv theater, but that's how I was introduced to those type of games. And even throughout my theater classes in high school, we would play them. And it was like, wow, we can just be fun and silly and make people laugh. And I loved it. And you know, tying into the whole not feeling worthy and eating disorder thing, when I would audition for shows, I knew that I could not play the ingenue. I knew I wasn't going to be the Kim in Bye Bye Birdie or, I don't know, I'm not having any other ones come to my mind, I think, because we did Bye Bye Birdie. I knew that I had to audition for like the funny friend. That's who I was. I was the funny friend. So that's who I started identifying as. I have a really funny family too, so I'm just like naturally funny if I do say so myself. But I always gravitated towards comedy. And in college, I learned more improv and sketch. And I just kind of had it throughout my life. But I didn't really seriously get back into improv until the past 2 years.
Okay.
So I had been getting back actually into stand-up. And it's funny because we were talking about the difference between stand-up and improv. And one of the biggest differences for me mentally is that stand-up, everything's prepared. You have a routine. I mean, obviously a lot of stand-up comics, they do crowd work and they do stuff that's off the cuff. But at its core, you do have material that you've prepared, that you've taken to other different venues before that you know is going to kill because audiences have laughed at before and over and over again. Improv, you got nothing. You got the audience when they prompt you in the moment. And when I would do stand-up, I would overthink the heck out of it. I would get so nervous beforehand, sitting there trying to remember my lines, afraid I was going to forget something. Does this come here? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't have that problem in improv. There's nothing to overthink because you just got to show up and be ready to do with the audience. And if you do something that's not funny, you just move on because you're in the scene. But typically when you're in the scene, when you're in that character, in the moment, present, you're not even thinking about what comes next. It just comes out of you so naturally because that's just what it is. Improv, a lot of people, they associate it with being funny because of things like whose line is it anyway, the improv theater. But improv is just short for improvisation, which means being in the moment and being present. And that's what so many more of us need to do in our personal lives, in our business, because that's where the magic happens. You think about how often you're in your own head with your agenda. When you would, if you just listen, the outcome would be so different.
Right.
So I got back into it going to my theater that I am a cast member at now, Just the Funny, down in Miami. I started taking lessons with them in 2024. And I hadn't taken improv lessons in maybe 10 years. And I was rusty. But it's a muscle, just like going to the gym. You can work your creativity muscle, your quick thinking muscle, your confidence muscle. Improv gives you all of it. And it's been such a blessing in my life because I really have shrunk my overthinking habits.
Well, I love that because I'm like really believing I need to sign up for something like improv. As much as it terrifies me, I do think that would really help me.
Yeah. And the way that I do it is I tell people I'm not going to have you barking like dogs or clucking like chickens, because we've all seen that TV show with improv or that movie where they show an improv class and everyone looks so weird and you're like afraid to be cringe. But first off, let me tell you.
I think I'd actually be fine with that.
Okay.
I think
tell me what you're afraid of.
I think it's like just having to be on the cusp of like speaking or saying something, even though I know I'm a good speaker. I think you tell me to be a dog or you tell me to be a cat, I'll figure out. I mean, I can meow and I can ruff, like dog, bark. But I mean, like at the end of the day, like to stand up, like I think about that. Whose line is it anyway? Like I used to watch that, like, and always with envy of like, how can they just get up there, be so creative, not crack up, but then sometimes they would, right, and just look like they're having fun. Like that's kind of what I envied, like that fun.
Yeah, right? And that's the thing is that they are having fun. And I will say, like when I first at Just the Funny got into the cast, I felt like I didn't measure up because I had been away from the craft for so long and I wasn't having fun with it. I still was like overthinking, like, okay, I gotta like make sure I'm the funniest one and blah, blah, and I gotta make sure that I make the audience laugh. And all my parents are in the audience, so I wanna make them laugh. And I'm just overthinking it and trying so hard.
Right.
And that's what a lot of us do in so many areas of our life. Like in dating, maybe you're trying too hard. But if you just like relax, have fun, be authentic, people are so attracted to that energy. And a magical thing happens on the stage with that when you relax and have fun, the craziest, funniest stuff comes out and the audience just eats it up because you are just living your best life on stage. And it's a magical moment. And I've seen how over the past 2 years, I've moved away from the overthinking and the caring and the holding on so tightly to the outcome. That's what a lot of us have to let go of, is holding on so tightly to the outcome and just be like, I'm just going to have fun with this.
No, it is. And it's so crazy because this is what I teach. This is what I do with my clients who are in my performance coaching, right? I teach them how to let go of the pressure, to change their expectations, and to not focus on the outcome, right? My best full marathon was when I didn't care or didn't think that I needed to qualify for Boston. And that was the one I qualified for Boston. And I loved it, and I had a great negative splits, and I didn't overthink it. I didn't overthink each mile. I didn't worry if I'm 2 seconds slower or 5 seconds faster and try to pull back or make it up. I just accepted that moment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's incredible, like what happens when you just let go and trust yourself. I think it's a lack of trust in ourselves. You know, when I was working myself up for stand-up, it's because I was so new at it, and it doesn't come as inherently to me. I'm not as talented in stand-up as I am at sketch or improv because I had been doing them for so much longer. And so I didn't trust that the audience was going to find me funny. And instead of leaning into like what makes me funny and what brings me joy and having fun with it, instead I was just this ball of overthinking. And they're not going to find me funny. They're not going to find me funny.
Right.
I'm so worried about saying the right thing. Of course it's not going to come out good or natural.
So how do you, and to wrap up a little bit, your whole life, because they kind of all overlap, right? The substances, the eating disorder, and the improv, even though they're all very different, right? How do they all show up like for you in like a package? Like how do you manage the balance of like remembering, like knowing that you're in recovery from drugs and alcohol, your eating disorders, but also having fun, right? And then balancing taking time for you. And we talked a little bit about that before. Like right now you're like work, you know, and like, so what does that look like for you, and how do you balance that all?
Yeah, and I joke that I work all the time, but really it's become a work-life integration versus work-life balance because like I'm not married, I don't have kids. My work is what brings me joy, and I do feel like I went through so many of these experiences. I went through so much unworthiness, and now I present as such a confident person. And notice I say I present as a confident person because that doesn't mean that I'm confident 100% of the time. I don't think anyone truly, truly is. But learning to present as a confident person, and in doing such, gaining a lot more confidence than I had before, I truly think it's my life's mission to bring this out of other women. And I would really be remiss to go through this whole podcast and not acknowledge that this is a very significant day for me. And I didn't even tell you this. I didn't even schedule this, but my best friend Meg passed 2 years ago today. I met her at the Meadows in September of 2018. We were in sober living together. And, you know, sometimes the demons are really strong.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. But, you know, one of the reasons that I fight so hard is because she was only in my life for 5 years, but she was so significant in my journey of self-love and self-acceptance. And because that's because Meg was the kind of friend that you would show up at her door, she'd be like, oh my God, girl, your skin is glowing. What are you using? And it's like everyone needs a friend like Meg. And so when I say that, I feel like all my life's lessons and everything in my life has added up to being on a mission of wanting to hype women up and help them be their most confident selves and help them take up space. Like I want to be a Meg for all other women.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you for still showing up today. And we're going to have to dedicate this to Meg because I mean, you know, it sounds like she was a beautiful human, and you won't forget that, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm so sorry. 'Cause
Thank you.
that
No,
is-
it's
it is hard. It's so hard when you lose somebody to the same disease that you're struggling with, let alone a disease that you may not understand, but like, you know what she's been through.
yeah, and it just shows you that this is real. And there
Yeah.
is a mental health crisis going on, and like we have to be kinder to each other.
Absolutely.
And take away the shame of struggling.
Yeah, for sure. And that is exactly why I started this podcast.
Yes, and I really appreciate you giving me the platform to celebrate Meg today.
Yeah,
I
of
honestly didn't
course.
even know I was going to bring it up, but I was just sitting here. I was like, I have to
Absolutely,
talk about
I'm
her
so
on her
glad.
day. She loved attention, Meggie, so she would be pissed if I didn't mention her today. So that one's for you, Meg.
Aw, well, that's so nice. And I really, I mean, she's with you. You could see it when you kind of acted her out, like what she showed
This is
up.
this is my Meg tattoo.
Oh, the butterfly?
Yeah, her final resting is in a beautiful glass blue butterfly.
Oh,
So that's
wow.
for her.
That's nice. And people come into our lives for different reasons. I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
So treasure them.
Absolutely. Be compassionate, empathetic. They may not walk the same journey as you, you know, have the same experience as you, but it goes back to like being kind. I did a podcast with somebody who talks about kindness matters, and Dito and Laura Reese, and being kind is free. It doesn't cost you a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right? So if everybody just did one kind thing a day outside of themselves for somebody else, imagine what this world would be.
Yeah, because it's all energy. It all comes
Absolutely.
back to you. I think it's harder to be mean than to be kind, but
100%.
so
Yeah.
be nice to others
I
because you never
agree.
know what someone's going through.
For sure. So where can people find you?
Well, you can find me, look me up on LinkedIn. I'm Jill Pavlov over there. Or if you want to have a little bit more fun with me and get into the comedy side, I'm Comedy Jill on Instagram. And keep an eye out if you're in the South Florida area because I am always doing.
That's got to be a shout out next week.
Yeah,
right?
so next week at Social Arch Studio in Boca, although I don't know if that's like a competitor and you want to cut that out. Next week, May 28th, Thursday, May 28th, we're doing Confident on Camera. So this is for the woman who knows that she's amazing at what she does, but when it comes to filming content or getting up on stage, she's like, I need someone to bring that out of me. I totally forget how to do that myself. So I use improv-infused exercises and just natural conversations just like this to really pull the gold out of women, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
We might have to make that as a separate little piece so that, because this will be dropping after that, I just realized.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
So-
I was like, we can just say, if you want to edit that out, just say, follow me because I'm
Yeah.
always doing different
Okay.
events with different Florida groups or putting them on my
Perfect.
own. So I always have events that help get you out of your shell, go
Yeah.
from overthinker to confident communicator.
But we'll have to get you here to do an improv night when I can attend.
I love that idea.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story because I know it will definitely resonate with a lot of people and help people.
Thank you.
So-
I hope so.
For sure. So, friends, until next time, thank you for joining Imperfectly Human, and I will catch you later.